And we're here together with partners from Mass Coalition for the Homeless, from Mass Budget Policy Center, there goes our sign with our names on it, Mass Public Health Association, and Homes for All Massachusetts. And we're here really on behalf of tenants and low-income renters and homeowners and advocates across the state to talk about rental assistance. Emergency rental assistance has been a lifeline during the pandemic, and unfortunately it's scheduled to end. But the good news is that it doesn't need to end. So we're here to ask state lawmakers and to let you all know why we need to continue this program and that we have the resources to do that. We're calling on our state leaders to make a different choice when it comes to federal emergency rental assistance, one that's going to help our most vulnerable neighbors, our communities of color, and our low-income residents stabilize their housing.
Good morning, my name is Kelly Turley. I'm with the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless. We're so grateful for you being here. We know that the pandemic is continuing for the lowest income residents of Massachusetts. As Andrea said, the application process for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program is set to close on Friday. That doesn't mean that there won't be any rental assistance. There still will be state-funded resources through the Residential Assistance for Families in Transition program. But we know that that program isn't deep enough, doesn't provide deep enough benefits, doesn't serve the same level of households as the federally funded program. At the same time, we know that Massachusetts is sitting on billions of dollars that could be used to continue emergency rental assistance. In fact, Massachusetts has about $2.3 billion left from American Rescue Plan funds for COVID relief that could be shifted to address the rental assistance gap. We also know that Massachusetts has a surplus right now in the state budget. So we could use FY22 surplus funds to continue providing ERAP benefits, Emergency Rental Assistance Program benefits. So we're making a choice, and we're asking the governor and the legislature to make the choice to stand with low-income tenants across the Commonwealth to provide the rental assistance that's needed to keep families afloat.
So we're going to hear today from some people who are going to be able to share with you firsthand what this experience has been, what it's been like to try to maintain a household during COVID, and also why it's still needed. We all wish that COVID were over, but it's not. And unfortunately, housing is going to be one of the areas that's going to take the longest to recover. And until we can make sure that our most vulnerable residents are stable, we're not going to have a swift recovery, we're not going to have an equitable recovery, and we won't have a full recovery. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Ana Sofia from the Neighborhood Developers, who has been working tirelessly during the pandemic to help people access this rental assistance, and with two tenants who can speak about their firsthand experiences.
Hi, my name is Ana Sofia. I work at the Neighborhood Developers on our housing assistance hotline. Yo soy Ana Sofía, trabajo en the Neighborhood Developers en nuestra línea de asistencia de renta y estoy aquí. Les quiero presentar a Isaura y a Felicita que van a hablar conmigo sobre sus experiencias. I'm here with Isaura and Felicita, and we're gonna talk about our experiences during this pandemic. So our housing assistance hotline has helped complete over 1,000 rental assistance applications since the start of the pandemic. And it's 2 years later, and we've seen lots of different program changes, lots of program cuts, extensions of the program, but the cut that we're facing this Friday, the end of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, is going to have the biggest effect. That's what we expect. And our team believes in situating our work in the context, in what's happening. Throughout the pandemic, we have sought to use rental assistance as a tool to keep people housed. We believe in doing that by understanding what's happening. And so right now, I want to turn it over to Felicita to talk about what's happening in Chelsea. Quiero presentarles a Felicita para que les hable sobre lo que está pasando en Chelsea y por qué necesitamos todavía la asistencia al alquiler.
Buenos días. Quiero hablarle acerca del contexto de la situación en que nosotros nos encontramos.
Good morning. I want to talk to you about the context where we find ourselves.
Existen muchos factores por el cual nosotros, por ejemplo en mi caso, mi familia, solicitamos la ayuda de asistencia de la renta en la situación en que nosotros nos encontramos de pandemia.
There are a lot of factors why families like my own apply for rental assistance during the pandemic.
Caímos en COVID y pues mi esposo y hubo la dificultad económica, la crisis económica en nuestro hogar. Y en vista de eso, pues acudimos a esa asistencia y pudimos lograr que nos las dieran.
My husband, he had COVID and we lost income, and so then we applied for rental assistance and we were able to get rental assistance.
Sin embargo, tuvimos que volver otra vez a solicitarla. En la situación que todavía nos encontramos, vimos que no solamente la situación de pandemia, sino también la parte de los costos, de los altos costos de los artículos. Entonces se nos dificultaba aún más poder nosotros cubrir con nuestras necesidades.
But then we had to apply again more recently because we still needed assistance, not just because of the low income, but because costs are really high. The cost of food, other living costs have been really high, so we needed to apply again.
Sin embargo, pues no solamente la parte de los costos, los altos costos para poder adquirir la comida, sino que yo veo que este programa ha sido de impacto positivo para aquellas familias y está incluida mi familia. Entonces veo la necesidad de que los que planifican de continuar con este programa que ha sido de mucha ayuda para muchas familias. Entonces yo sugiero que para tomar una decisión de hacer esa transición,
This assistance has been very helpful to many families like my own, and what I think is that the people who are making decisions should look at the context and what's happening now to make this decision.
es necesario considerar los factores para poder seguir con el programa, que es necesario.
It's very important to look at the factors for why it's important to continue this program, why this program is very necessary.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Gracias, Felicita. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more as an advocate about our experience working with households applying for rental assistance. So ERAP and RAP were already significantly cut this past January in the middle of winter, when thousands of households were losing seasonal employment and getting sick with COVID. And households who we had worked with last November, who we thought might be able to pay the rent in January, weren't able to pay the rent anymore. And these households have still not accessed longer term relief. We have waiting lists of folks who are still waiting to apply for a program that's about to end on Friday. And it's also important to remember that many households have not accessed this assistance at all. As advocates, our work is to help people access a program that is not easy to navigate on your own. We work with a lot of people who have tried to apply on their own, who have submitted applications, but whose applications have been denied, often because of language barriers and technology barriers. And so there's a lot of households who haven't even accessed this assistance. And I want to also turn it over to Isaura to talk for a moment about why this specific program, why ERAP offers a benefit that RAP cannot offer, and her experience. Ahí le voy a presentar a Isaura, perdón, quien va a hablar un poco de su experiencia y por qué el programa ERAP, el programa de asistencia de renta por emergencia, tiene unos beneficios que el programa RAP no puede ofrecer.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Isaura. Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Isaura. Quiero hablar un poco de la situación. Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Isaura. Quiero hablar un poco de la situación sobre el programa.
Good morning, my name is Isaura and I want to talk a bit about the situation of this program.
soy madre soltera de 3 hijos y fui muy beneficiada con este programa y pido que no es el momento de que lo cambien. Pienso que es de mucha ayuda.
I'm a single mother of 3 kids, and this program helped me a lot, and I think that's really important, and I think it should continue.
Por ejemplo, el landlord es uno que no le gusta firmar los documentos y así como estoy yo, hay muchas personas que no reciben el beneficio por landlord que no quieren firmar los documentos.
In my situation, my landlord didn't want to sign papers, and there's a lot of people like me in my situation who haven't been able to access assistance because their landlord didn't want to complete the paperwork.
Por eso pedimos que no es el momento que cambien el programa para que muchas personas que necesitamos sean beneficiadas.
And it's important that the program not change in this moment so other people can access assistance even if their landlords can't sign the paper, and so that they can access additional assistance.
Le doy las gracias a Ana Sofía porque ha sido un elemento importante en esta asociación y espero que no se cambie y que sigan ayudando. Gracias.
I say thank you, and I hope that this program continues. Gracias, Isaura, por compartir su historia. All right, so I just want to recap quickly what Isaura said. So Isaura was able to receive rental assistance even though her landlord didn't participate, because ERAP allows for direct-to-tenant payments while RAF does not. So a lot of people in Chelsea, their landlords don't want to cooperate, they don't want to send documents, and after Friday, those households won't be able to apply for rental assistance. And then really quickly, I just want to say, as an advocate, one thing that's really important about ERAP has been its flexibility, particularly for households who are facing displacement because they're being evicted or received a rent increase or can no longer afford their rent. And as advocates, we work with community partners in Chelsea to support many of these households who are facing displacement with rehousing. And a program benefit of 18 months rather than a program with a cap on funds gives a lot more flexibility for people to look for a new place, for advocates to have time to support a family in making a longer term plan. And when this program ends, we'll have to rely on much more limited resources and focus energy on paying for hotels and dealing with emergency situations rather than making long-term plans for folks. $7,000 is barely enough to cover 3 months of rent. And for most people, it won't cover the cost to move into an apartment. And so lastly, I want to say that we know that rental assistance is not the only answer, that rental assistance is not going to fix housing problems, but it is still really important to consider this context. And I want to thank again Felicita and Isaura for sharing their stories. Y quiero agradecer otra vez a Felicita y a Isaura por compartir sus historias.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Antonia de León y vivo en la ciudad de Lynn. Yo trabajo como dependiente en una bodega.
Hi, my name is Antonia de León. I live in the city of Lynn, and I work in a bodega.
Durante la pandemia mi familia y yo nos vimos muy afectados con el virus. Mi esposo trabaja en un restaurante y en el tiempo de la pandemia pues cerraron el restaurante, se obligó a estar en casa, no tuvimos cómo pagar la renta en el tiempo de la pandemia y cerraron por completo el restaurante.
During the pandemic, my family was very affected. We got sick with the virus, and my husband, who worked in a restaurant, lost his job, and I also lost work, and the restaurant closed completely, and when they opened again, they never called him back to work.
Me atrasé en la renta porque no había dinero suficiente.
I got behind on my rent because there wasn't enough money.
Yo me mantuve trabajando por 2 o 3 días, pero así el dinero no alcanzaba. Tenemos 2 niñas menores que alimentar. Tuve que tuve que ir a trabajar porque en ese tiempo no había niñeras para dejar a mis hijas.
I was working 1 or 2 days a week, but it was not enough. We had 2 young daughters to feed, and I also had to miss work because we didn't have anyone to take care of our kids during the pandemic.
La verdad es que en la situación me dio una depresión muy grande cuando estábamos enfermos porque mi esposo tiene una condición médica. Si él, yo pensaba, si él moría o yo, ¿quién cuidaría de nuestras hijas? Y yo tenía que ir a trabajar porque no había de otra que hacer eso.
And the truth is that during the pandemic, I was very depressed because when we were sick, because my husband had a medical condition and I didn't know if he died, what was going to happen to me and my kids. I didn't know what was going to happen to them.
Nunca nos habíamos atrasado con la renta antes. La diferencia entre su cheque y el mío ahora es casi de $400 menos a la semana. Antes de la pandemia.
Before the pandemic, we had never gotten behind on rent. Now, the difference in the amount we're making is almost $400 less than what we were making before the pandemic.
Si no hubiera habido este programa que me hubiera ayudado a ponerme al día con la renta, lo único que yo esperaba era que me tiraran a la calle con mi familia.
If this program hadn't existed, I could have gone to the streets homeless with my family.
Porque al dueño solo le importa el dinero. Si nosotros trabajamos o no, a él no le importa nada de eso. Él solo quiere el dinero. En vez que él lo tiene, si él no lo tiene, nos amenazan con tirarnos a la calle.
The only thing that matters to the landlord is the money, not if we're working or not if we're sick or not. The only thing that matters is the money, and sometimes he even threatens to evict us.
En el apartamento donde yo vivo está en muy malas condiciones, pero así el dueño necesita el dinero. Si yo no le pago un día, al día siguiente le está llamando por el dinero.
The apartment where we live is in very bad conditions, but the landlord is still calling for the rent, and he's still asking us to pay the rent.
Y por eso estamos aquí para pedirles que por favor no quiten estas ayudas, porque la verdad hay familias, muchas familias, quizás muchas, pero a veces no tenemos esa oportunidad de hablar y decir lo que estamos viviendo.
And that's why we're here asking you to continue the rental assistance to help other families. There are lots of families who need this assistance, but sometimes their stories aren't heard.
Si nos van a cortar el programa, entonces hagan que la ley obligue a los dueños a trabajar en la renta, porque no hay forma de pagar con 2 personas trabajando con un sueldo mínimo.
If you are going to end the program, then make a law that makes the landlords reduce the rent, because there is no way with 2 people working a minimum wage to pay an apartment in Lynn now.
No sé cuál será el porcentaje de las familias que como yo están viviendo esta situación. Como les dije anteriormente, en el edificio que yo vivo está en muy malas condiciones, y por eso yo hoy vine, tal vez no he dormido porque yo salí muy temprano del trabajo en la noche, y así estoy aquí pidiendo por favor, porque hay muchas familias que como yo están viviendo en una situación que no podemos pagar la renta porque la comida está muy cara. No tenemos eso de poder pagar el apartamento.
There are many families like myself who are in this situation, who can't pay the rent. I worked all night and I came here after working And I'm asking you to continue the rental assistance because there's a lot of people like us who can't pay the rent and who have to pay high living costs and food. And I'm asking you to please extend the rental assistance. Thank you.
Ok, muchísimas gracias y yo desde ya les doy gracias porque la verdad necesitamos esa ayuda. Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias, Antonia. So like Antonia said, this is not, she is, as she said, one of many. I think it's important to know that, remember that COVID has hit areas very differently. And so in Antonia's case, she is back to work, not where she used to be. So her income is lower, her rent is higher, and actually at her current income, even though it's not enough, she would actually be over the 50% to be eligible for RAP. So while she was getting rental assistance to keep her afloat with ERAP, if this program ends on Friday, as of next week, she will not be eligible for any rental assistance. And so what is going to happen to Antonia and many like her? And another thing I wanted to point out is that Antonia is from Lynn. This is a problem that is hitting across the state. We know that rents are increasing not only in Boston, all over the place. We're hearing about monumental rent increases that we felt were very high beforehand, and now it seems that a lot of places are experiencing sudden high rent increases. So I want to invite up here to speak some folks from Waltham, just to talk a little bit about what's happening, again, outside of Boston. Genevieve.
Good morning. Thank you for coming in this rainy day. My name is Genevieve Tavera, and I'm the community organizer in Waltham. I'm here with one of our tenants. We have been suffering a lot with this COVID, and especially the people that they are limited not only because they cannot have enough hours for work, but also because they are hit with different problems like illnesses. Here let me introduce one of my tenants is Doris, and she's going to speak about the need to have the ERAP program for a longer time.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Doris, soy de la ciudad de Waltham. Yo soy una persona que he sufrido el cáncer y mi hijo es el único que me mantenía y él ha sufrido un stroke. Y a nosotros nos han estado ayudando el ERAP, ese programa, y gracias a eso nos hemos estado ayudando. Sabemos que en la ciudad de Waltham las rentas son muy altas y ahora todavía nosotros necesitamos ese apoyo, esa ayuda. Estamos pidiendo el apoyo que no nos quiten, por favor.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Doris y vengo de la ciudad de Waltham. Quiero decirles que el programa de ERAP nos ha estado ayudando. El programa de ERAP nos ha estado ayudando en todo este momento. Thank you. So good morning, my name is Doris and I come from the city of Waltham. The ERAP program has been helping me a lot. I got hit with cancer and my son, the one that supports me, also got a stroke, and we have been dealing with a lot of illness in the family. We are starting to work few hours, but still it's not enough. We are still recuperating not only from cancer, stroke, but also the effects of COVID. So please do not cut the program, because if you cut the program, we don't know where we are going to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to thank you all for standing in the rain with us. It's really important. You know, a lot of people we know, including, you know, a lot of us were sick with COVID as recently as February. And so I think as much as we want this to be in the rearview mirror, and we are making a lot of progress towards that, we need to remember that there are still people who are really struggling to get back on their feet. This is emergency program. There's emergency money that we still have available, and we need to keep this going until we get to a place where we feel like we have a strong opportunity for a recovery for all in Massachusetts. So I'm going to have Isaac come up and close us out. Thank you for coming.
I'm Isaac Simon Hodes, speaking right now on behalf of Homes for All Massachusetts, as well as Lynn United for Change. I just want to quickly thank a couple of the groups that joined us today. In addition to the ones that were mentioned, we have Neighbor to Neighbor here in the house. Woo! And also Right to the City Boston. Hey. Andrea mentioned this is a statewide issue here in Boston, but also across the Commonwealth. There will be an event on this same topic tonight in Springfield, Massachusetts with other partners. So we just want to make sure it's clear. This is not just Eastern Mass, this is Central Mass, this is Western Mass. So we know the view from Governor Baker's multi-million-dollar house in Swampscott is a little different from the view in cities like Lynn, in places like Chelsea and East Boston and Worcester. And we're asking to listen to the voices of the people you heard today, Governor Baker and leaders in the state legislature. Listen to the people on the front lines dealing with this. We're not asking a lot. All we're asking is don't pull the rug out from under our communities, from our people as we struggle to recover from the pandemic. It might feel in certain wealthier parts of the state like the pandemic impacts are ending or over. We are still struggling to claw our way back in working class communities, in communities of color, in the hardest hit areas across the state. Don't pull out the rug from under us as we try to find our way back. You heard from numerous tenants today. People are still hurting. We had a housing crisis before this pandemic. The pandemic made it worse, and it revealed to people who may not have been aware the depth of the divides in our Commonwealth. All those words we heard about the importance of frontline workers, about people finally recognizing the connection between health and housing, about racial disparities and economic disparities. We heard lots of nice statements from the governor, from the legislature. This is where the rubber hits the road. Cutting a program like this is just going to exacerbate those exact same divides. So we need to see action. We don't need to hear words of concern. We need to see that you care about the people we've heard from today and the thousands and thousands of others in similar situations. We've got long-term solutions we need to fight for in the housing crisis. We need our communities to have the tools to address drastically rising rents and displacement, as well as foreclosures that homeowners are facing. And those are conversations we need to have over the coming month or two. But right now, this week, we need you to take emergency action. We need you to stop the cut to rental assistance, to the ERAP program. It's unconscionable that after all the lessons we supposedly learned during this pandemic, during the worst days, that the takeaway for the governor, for the legislature, for the people at DHCD who are waving this through, it's unconscionable that their takeaway would be, let's cut back. Let's return to a program that was inadequate before the pandemic started and prevent the communities that were hardest hit from recovering. We need ERAP as a temporary solution to stop the bleeding while we build towards a solution to the broader housing crisis. Do not cut ERAP. It would be a slap in the face and an awful impact on communities who are hardest hit. We need this program preserved because housing is a human right. And if you can say it with me, housing is a human right. Thank you.
Thank you all. If there's people around who are available to speak on this topic, if you'd like to talk to us one-on-one. So thank you for coming out today.